library.
Right.
Like, you don't want to go to see a movie that's 100 hours long.
That's right.
A movie's a great movie when it's 90 minutes. You're in, you're out. Maybe 2 hours if it's 3 hours if it's Blade Runner or something crazy.
I quote Christopher Hitchens in my book because I love his analogy. First of all, you're at the party and death taps you on the shoulder and says, you have to leave. And worse, the party's going to go on without you and they're going to all have fun. It's like, oh no. But he says, if the Christian version of heaven and hell is real, you're tapped on the shoulder at the party until you can never leave the party. It's like, oh, that's even worse. I don't want to do anything forever.
Right. And imagine the classical version of what heaven is. Like a guy with a harp and there's a bunch of babies with wings. Like, what?
Or even that aside, that this is why Hitch called it celestial North Korea. You have a dictator that knows all of your thoughts and everything you're going to do. It's like, wait a minute, that does not sound like fun to me.
That seems to me to be the inevitable future, though. That's one of the things that I'm really nervous about, this dystopian version of technological interference in our lives. I'm entirely convinced that we're going to, inside of 100 years, live in a world where all of your thoughts really are documented and they have access to them. The same way no one in their wildest dreams conceived of photographs 400 years ago.
Right.
And 400 years from now, we're going to have the ability to record thoughts and ideas, and they're going to be able to read the contents of each other's minds.
Right. That could be. Well,
it's going to suck.
Maybe we need some regulation there for that then.
Maybe we just have to accept the fact that most of what goes wrong in the world goes wrong because people can think these secret, sneaky, fucked up thoughts. Right. And when those no longer exist anymore, maybe we'll clean out human behavior.
There was an Outer Limits episode about that in the 1950s. It might have been the other one.
Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone, where this guy all of a sudden is able to read the minds of other people, and he's at work and he's listening to all these conversations and all this fun stuff. But then there's this one guy who's really dark, like he's gonna come in and blow everybody away. And so it sort of climaxes where he comes in and tells the boss and everybody, and they go in there, and it turns out the guy says, well, I was never going to do that. I was just angry and I was just thinking that. So that's like a Minority Report thing. You can have these thoughts.
Right.
We know from research that this is David Buss's research on, he wrote a book on murderers, The Murder Next Door it's called. And so he did the research on asking subjects, have you ever thought about killing somebody you didn't like? And it turns out like 80% of guys and 67% of women have had homicidal fantasies in their life. Now, 99.9% of us never act on our homicidal fantasies, but we get mad enough we can imagine. And he's got the narrative accounts because he also asked him, tell me what you would do. And oh my God, they're just incredible to read. Like, I would break every bone in his body, and then I would pull out his fingernails, and then they go on, and you're like, holy shit.
But it's just fantasy.
It's just fantasy, yeah.
Well, some people have suicidal fantasies.
Yeah, that's right.
There's people that have fantasies of jumping off of a giant building.
Right. But most don't act on it.
Most don't act on it.
Right.
And there's people that just have these thoughts and they think them. They look at the edge and they go, I could just jump off right now and end this whole thing, but I won't. And should we punish them?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
In the Minority Report scenario, it's like, okay, we found out that this guy's thinking about robbing the bank. So he had a fantasy about it. He's not going to do it.
I've thought about doing that.
You have?
Not really. Not really.
Kind of fleeting...
But I was like, what would I do if I had to rob this bank? I mean, I've never actually considered robbing a bank, but I thought, okay, I'm at the bank. What if I just decided to pull out a gun and everybody get the floor? Where's the cameras? Where's the security guard?
You're right.
You've seen so many movies. It's if you're bored, But today, that's another thing. People are rarely bored because when they are, they just pull out their phone and stare at pictures of other people's butts.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's like, you just pull out Facebook or Instagram and no longer bored.
When I was in my religious phase in college, I asked, before I went to Pepperdine, which is a religious school, I was at Glendale College just to get my GE out of the way. And my philosophy professor was an atheist and I was an evangelical, so I'm telling him about Jesus and the whole thing and the afterlife, and he said, and he wanted to know, are there golf courses and tennis courts in heaven? Because I got to have something to do. I'd be bored. And I thought, I have no idea.
You won't need that.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to be with Jesus. Nobody wants to play golf. God.
And then I also quote from Julia Sweeney's Letting Go of God monologue. She opens this monologue with, Julia from Saturday Night Live, with the Mormon boys coming by her house in Hollywood, and they're pitching their story. Like, okay, come on in, pitch me your story like it's a Hollywood, movie script. What do you got? So they tell her the whole time it's going to be great. The blind shall see again, the deaf shall hear again, and your body will be whole again. And so she says, well, let's see, I had uterine cancer, so I had my uterus taken out. Do I get my uterus back when I go to heaven? They said, yeah. She goes, I don't want it back. So she said, what if you had a nose job and you liked it? Do I have to get my old nose back?
That's true, right?
So I open this little funny story because it gets to the problem of identity. Who are you? So if you're resurrected with Jesus, see, earlier Christian cult sects before Descartes introduced dualism, they believe that when you're resurrected at the after your death, you are physically there in heaven, physically, and your soul, the whole thing. It's just one thing. So the question is, well, how old are you when you're there? So you're brought up and there you are sitting next to Jesus and God and whatever. So 30. 30 seems like a good year. It's a year Jesus was crucified. Okay, 30. But wait a minute, I'm 63 now. So what happens to all the memories of my life for the last 33 years? Oh no, you get all those memories. Okay, but the memory of my being 30 now is different from the memory I had when I was 50 of being 30 and 40 being 30 and even when I was in my 30s being 30. The memories are always changing and edited and forgotten or modified, particularly based on life experiences that happen afterwards. So in your 20s, you go to this college, or you marry this person, or you take this job, or whatever. You don't really know what the impact of those decisions are until much later in life. Which is why I always think it's ridiculous for people to write memoirs in their 20s or 30s because they're celebrities. You have no idea what those things actually mean until much later. So this is the problem of who you are. So first of all, we already know that none of your body is the same material it was, say, a decade ago. Your cells are all recycled. The molecules and atoms are gone. There's new ones that replace it. It's the pattern. It's the pattern of information that represents you, Joe Rogan. This is what you look like. These are your memories. So somehow this has to be copied. So in the Ray Kurzweil scenario of the singularity, we're going to upload the mind. They're going to copy your connectome, all your memories in your synapses. Okay, so right away there's the problem of, well, which memories? Well, all of them. No, there are no fixed set of memories that are you. Your memories are always changing. So the moment you take a snapshot of it, that's just a fixed point. That's not you, really. You are this whole long continuum that's always kind of flexible and changing. So there's that. And then there's the problem with the mind uploading scenario is there's two kinds of cells. There's the memory self, mem self of all your memories, and then there's the point of view self, the POV self. So when you go to sleep tonight, you wake up tomorrow, you're still looking at the world through your eyes, and there's a continuity of point of view from one day to the next. Same thing with general anesthesia. So like in the Johnny Depp movie Transcendence, where he's poisoned by these terrorists and he's dying, he's got like a week to go, he copies his mind, his connectome, equivalent of the genome, and puts it into a computer, and then he dies, and they turn the computer on, and he's in the computer looking out through the little camera hole. I don't see how this could happen. That is, if we copied you, your connectome, everything, all your memories. So we had a Joe Rogan #2 copy ready to go. But instead of you dying, let's say we had a sophisticated fMRI brain scan machine, slid you into it, copied your connectome, uploaded it into the cloud or whatever, and then we slide you back out, and you're standing there. You're still looking at the world through your eyes. That's just Joe Rogan #2, a copy. And no more do you look at that than a twin looks at its sibling and says, well, there I am. No, you're still standing there going, no, I'm here. That's just a copy of me. And so this, to me, seems a central problem with the mind uploading scenario. It's just a copy.
Did you see the thing in National Geographic today about the cloned monkeys?
No.
They've managed to actually clone monkeys?
No.
And yeah, Jamie, I tweeted it earlier today. It's crazy. And they're speculating that if they can do that to monkeys, they're going to be able to do that to humans.
Yeah. But again, so who is that?
Right, if there's a Michael Shermer, is it your twin?
Yeah.
I mean, like when you meet twins, it's very weird. Like I used to date a girl who was a twin. She had a sister who looked exactly like her, but like a little off, just a something, just a feel like, oh, you're not her, you're her sister. Super, super confusing. So they weren't the same person, but they pretty much were. Yeah, here's the article. Scroll up there. Clone monkeys created in the lab. Now what? Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you're making copies.
Yeah, so it's a copy, but it's not the same person because they have their own individual life experiences.
The moment you and your copy start diverging away and leading different lives, you're going to have different memories. You should have on your show Nancy Siegel from Cal State Fullerton. She's the world's leading twin expert, and she has all these great scenarios. She has a new book out called Accidental Brothers, and she has another book out on Switched at Birth. And Nancy Siegel, and these are scenarios. Not only do we have the behavior genetics studies, because she worked on the famous Minnesota Twins research, not the baseball team, but the Twins research, of twins separated at birth and raised in different environments. Like, the one raised in a Jewish home, the other raised in Nazi Germany. They get together, they have the same watch, they wear the same kind of clothes, they use the same toothpaste, they married women that look pretty similar, so there's a lot that genetics does that is very subtle. There's no gene for, like, we're both Catholic or wearing this kind of clothes, but if you have, as Nancy explains it, if you have a certain body type, which twins are going to have almost the exact same body type, certain clothes are going to look better on you and you're more likely to pick those, so by chance you're more likely to get similar clothes. There's no genes for clothes, but something like that, body type or temperament. You have a certain kind of temperament, at least half of which is heritable, so you're more likely to choose certain professions or prefer certain hobbies or activities or pick spouses that are the kind of, that would gel well with that temperament. So that's
if you make good decisions, though.
Well, yeah, there is there's the element of volition. The choices you make in life do diverge a little bit. So twins are a little bit different, from that. But yeah. But so a clone, again, the moment you start leading separate lives, so why the copy of you is not going to be you in heaven. And religions have the same problem. If God is able to reconstruct your body like a transporter. I got into the world of Star Trek when I was writing this book. It's like, oh my God, they have this whole webpage is devoted to what does the transporter do? It's like, okay, first of all, there's no transporter, right? It's just science fiction. It can do whatever it wants. But is it copy and paste? They just copy you and reconstruct you with atoms on the other side.
Or is it cut and paste?
Or is it they actually move the atoms and reconstruct it? Anyway, but it does get to the problem of identity. Well, what are you really? Because you don't have to. It's not the matter, the material. It's really the pattern. Which is why the singularity people focus on the cloud and uploading the mind, because it's the information. But the information is always changing, and how does the point of view go with it? See, with the cryonics, I can at least imagine that if I'm frozen and woken up somehow 1,000 years from now, that I'd wake up like I do after surgery or sleep. I can't see how that would happen if you flip on the switch in the computer or in the cloud or whatever, that I'd be there going, oh, here I am.
Well, isn't there also the problem that every 7 to 10 years, every cell in your body essentially has been replaced, except your neurons?
That's right. Yeah.
So are we just our neurons?
Well, that's the idea. That's what the singularity people
you're not your nose job.
That's right.
You're not your fake butt or your fake lips. You're your neurons only.
But even there, see, the transhumanists, they imagine this transitional stage where you start wearing contact lenses, say they can call up the internet, and the moment I see you, Joe Rogan, the name pops up, your Wikipedia page pops up, and now I have this information. So I'm not bionic, but I'm also not just human. I'm transhuman. Okay, so then who are you? Right, so these are the sort of the transitional stages. So a cochlear implant is a kind of a brain chip, and I think about that research of the paraplegic, quadriplegic man who can control his computer cursor, and now he can actually control a fake artificial limb just by thinking about it. So they put a chip in his motor cortex that reads the thoughts. So he has these thoughts, and he's been trained to pull the cup of water up to his mouth and drink with the artificial arm. At some point, say 50 years, 100 years from now, we could have it all mapped, and you could control your whole environment just by thinking. I would like to hear Mozart, and you just think about it, and then the music in your house comes on, and it's Mozart.
Well, I freak out about Siri sometimes. Like, my daughter asked me about a song that she likes, and we were in the car, and I pressed the Siri button on my phone, and I said, hey, what's that new musical with, what's his name? Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine guy. some musical that's based on Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus.
All right.
She wanted the song. I literally asked Siri to do it, and it started playing it instantly, like within a couple of seconds. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That this thing just pulled it out of the sky, and it's playing it in my car.
Yep. I did that the other night. I wanted to hear Bob Seger's Hollywood Nights. I'm not sure why I got that in my head. And it popped right up. There's a YouTube video of him from 1978 just rocking it. It's like, wow.
It's amazing.
I'm just driving on the 101 freeway heading back home to Santa Barbara. Like, I'd like to hear Bob Seger, Hollywood Nights.
Wow.
Boom. There it is.
Yeah.
So
The Greatest Showman. That's the movie.
Okay. There we
go. My
go.
daughter loves that movie. So she wanted to hear the song, but I just talked to the phone, and it did that. When are we going to get past the talking to the phone?
Right. You just think it.
Yeah, because I'm pretty comfortable with looking for it. Let me hold on, honey. Let me find it online.
Right.
I'm going to go get it. Okay, let me download it. Let me pay for it. Let me use my thumbprint or whatever. And then now it's just talk to your phone.
Right.
When is it just pull it up?
Pick it up.
You know, I want to hear a Led Zeppelin Whole Lot of Love. I just start thinking da down da down 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 down, and it starts playing. And when is that going to happen?
Yeah.
That's probably coming. We're probably all going to give in to some sort of a chip, something that we can get implanted. Simple, easy, transdermal device.
Right.
You know, fashionable. You go to a club, it glows.
Right.
Ooh, you got the new one. You got the iPhone 38.
Yeah, I think all that's far more likely to happen before we get to the point where you could copy an entire brain and put it in a clone of your body.
I interviewed Kurzweil, and I had a really interesting conversation with him for the sci-fi show that I was doing a few years back, and I find him to be very interesting. He's a fascinating, incredibly intelligent guy that has, I think he has more than 100 different patents and different things that he's invented.
He's a genius.
He's a bona fide genius. But I also found it incredibly sad, his motivation, like what he's trying to do. You know, he's trying to recreate his father.
Yeah.
Did
you see that the documentary about it?
Yes, Transcendent.
It was kind of sad.
Yeah,
dark.
Yes, very dark.
And he's got all his basement is filled with all his dad's stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, he's always talking about life, but he's just really kind of obsessed with death. This is what I worry about, is that, again, back to the Alvy's era, you know, we don't live in the next life, whatever that is, or the far future. We live now, and don't miss it.
Yes.
You know, if you're so focused on death and how we can solve these problems, okay, I'm glad somebody's working on it. And he's head of engineering for all of Google now, and they have that company, Calico. So a couple $100 million working on aging problems. Great. Again, if you can solve Alzheimer's or these things, that's great. But, you know, don't be so focused on the next life, you miss out.
Well, I don't necessarily know if he is so focused that he's missing out. I don't think he's missing out. And I think he has extraordinary vision in terms of like what is possible with the exponential increase of technology. So I think having a guy like that around it's helpful. I think it's beneficial to everybody. It's incredibly fascinating to hear him talk about those things. You know, I'm too dumb to know if he's right. You know, when I'm hearing him talk, I'm like, you really think? Yes, by 2045, we'll be downloading our brain into a computer. I'm like, man, I don't know. That shit seems close. Yeah. It's 2018, man. I mean, when I interviewed him, I think it was probably 2013 or somewhere around then.
Although, you know, to be fair, if you said, you know, a century ago when they had telegraph, well, more than a century ago, just the invention of the telegraph, but, you know, in a century and a half or so, you're going to be, you know, pressing a button and just calling out what you want on a little box. It'd be like, you're insane. What are you talking about? What are you smoking?
Yeah.
And here we are. You know, so, now, you know, so this is why science fiction is usually set far enough in advance, like a century or two, rather than in the historical present, so that you can postulate these kinds of things. This is what science fiction writers tell me. If you set it off far enough, readers are willing to suspend disbelief because, it seems possible. Look what we've been able to do. So, okay, fair enough. If we can do that, I'm all for it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm all for it too, but boy, I don't know. I've been very convinced, and more so over time, that human beings in this form, that our time is limited. I think artificial, and I think even the word artificial life is a weird word to throw around, because it's not going to be artificial. It's going to be an actual thing.
Right.
It's just going to be non-biological.
Right.
And I think that's what life is outside of Earth. I think that humans what we do with our curiosity, if there's other curiosity in the universe, other curious life forms, I think they probably do the same thing. They realize that, well, there's a massive limitation in terms of biological tissue and in terms of our ability to evolve. Like, well, I could just reprogram a phone. Like, your phone evolves way quicker than people do. I mean, go back to look at your... I have an iPhone X, right? Now go back and think about an iPhone 1. That's a piece of shit, you know? Imagine you have to go back
that's
to
only
that.
a decade.
It's only a decade. You had to go back to that clunky,
this is why
thing.
Scientists tend to be skeptical of the UFO alien abduction stories, because if we do encounter aliens coming here, they're not going to be biological.
Yeah.
They're going to be computers or machines, because that's the only thing that can survive the long distances, long time of interstellar spaceflight.
Yeah, I think we're just so wrapped up in the idea of biology being so important. Like it has to breed the normal way with eggs and sperm. Right. Otherwise, it's bullshit.
I mean, we think of it, biology as wet stuff, but really they're machines. A cell is a machine. It's just processing molecules,
right?
Which is what nanobots are going to do. They're going to process molecules. Yes. So it's really just they're all machines.
Yeah, they're cellular machines. And when they talk about things like quantum computing and things get really squirrely, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you saying? What do you mean by quantum computing?
Right.
Like, where is this? Is this a computer? Like, does this use like a regular motherboard? Like, how does it have a CPU? Like, what's next stage after that? Like, what resemblance is it going to have to anything that we think of today in terms of the kind of technology that we're accustomed to?
Right. So Ray makes the point that, if you track, say, back to the 1950s, where you have computers the size of this room, down to, now, okay, so you just keep the curve going, and eventually they'll be the size of blood cells. And you just ingest these little computers, and they go in there and they fix your mutant DNA and the bacteria that are in there, or they repair blood vessels, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is what he's envisioning. And I can conceive of it in principle, I think, but I forget whose law it is. Any trend that cannot go on forever won't.
Ooh.
So
if it gets to a certain...
Like Moore's law, the doubling of computing, that can't go on forever. Now, the quantum computing people say, oh, yes, that's right, it'll stop, but we're going to do this other thing that is completely different. Okay, okay, fine.
Well,